Hello my friends, my name is Lindsey and I run the blog Books for Christian Girls, and welcome back to the little corner of the internet where I talk mainly about Christian fiction. Today is a recent reads and it's more books than I prefer. I have about 21 or 22 books to talk about. I prefer to do the 8 to 12, but that rarely ever works out. I have a lot of books to talk about. This is probably going to be a longer video. Hopefully it won't be too terribly long, but feel free to grab a snack, a cup of tea, whatever you'd like, or you can just skip around with the timestamps in the description. That's totally fine with me. I always organize these videos from genre. I do have to say though, about half of these that I'll be talking about today are probably more on the clean fiction side, so they'll be at the end of this video, and they're just organized in a way that makes sense to my brain, but they might not make sense to anyone else. So again, timestamps below, links to all of these books for review-wise, all my reviews, full content, and content details always listed will also be linked in the description. I typically try to do lowest to highest. That didn't really work out because I read quite a few series, so they got different ratings and some were better than others, and they're not in my proper order, but that's fine. That's fine. Let's get started. I have a nonfiction to talk about. Well, I'm saying nonfiction. It's a devotional, but that's still technically nonfiction in my brain, but that is Our Faithful God Devotional by Katie Davis Majors. It's for 52 weeks, and it's all about leaning on his unchanging character. And I really like her writing style, so I enjoyed this one as well. This is her first devotional. I don't know if she'll write any more, but it kind of goes right in line with her new book, Safe All Along, which I have prior reviewed and really enjoyed. Whenever I review a devotional for BFCG, I typically read it in one setting, so I don't really get like that devotional aspect of the book because I have to review it. So typically I will choose, will I go back in a few months or up to a year or so and read it as a devotional myself? And with this one I think I would. What I really liked about this devotional though is it had a lot of read this chapter of the Bible, and it really got you into your Bible, which I really liked. I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but I talked a little bit about it in my Annotate With Me video while I annotated Safe All Along, her other book, that I've noticed a lot of devotionals, like they have a scripture written out, they kind of tell you the context of what was going on in the Bible at that time, what's the kind of meaning, if you will, and then a little devotion, a prayer, devotional, and then next chapter. You don't necessarily get in your Bible. And I really don't like that trend happening, so I really liked that this book had you in your Bible. And I thought that was a really well done. I definitely think I'll be getting a copy for myself to read as a proper devotional. So for Christian Young Adult, I technically only have one, but there's a few other ones I could squeeze in here because they're kind of on that cusp of clean/Christian. Kind of a little bit of both. So I'm going to leave those over in the clean genre, but for the very Christian one, I read Identity by Annabelle Batie. This book was different, but it was fun. I gave it a 3.5-star personal rating, but I think if you're like 13 or 14, you probably would enjoy it much more than I did. It was about a main girl, and her name just escaped me, Maria. Maria just recently turned 16, and she finds out when she gets in water the next day after her 16th birthday that she is half mermaid. And she didn't know this. She's been living in an orphanage her entire life. And things happen, adventures happen, things happen in the mermaid world. And it was just really interesting to read a Christian fantasy book with mermaids in it. I don't know, I thought it was entertaining, it was different. I would potentially read the rest of the series as they release. For the suspense category, I technically only have one, which is really weird. You're going to see a theme in my reading as this video continues because I read a lot of Regency and a lot of clean fiction Kindle Unlimited books. So, by the way, Identity by Annabelle Batie, the book I just talked about, that one is on KU if you'd like to check it out. This next one is not for the suspense category, but that is Shadows at Dusk by Elizabeth Goddard. This is book 2 in the Missing in Alaska series. And kind of like how I said when I reviewed the first book of this series, Alaska wilderness, Missing in Alaska is not really my thing for some reason. It's just, I would never be in that situation, I think, because I don't do wilderness, I don't do cold. I'm a Texas girl, so I'm not going to be in Alaska for any kind of adventure that these main couples go on. But I've been wanting to try out this series. I don't know if I'll read the third book, but I read this one because the main girl is a bush pilot. Is that the proper name? Yes, she is a bush pilot. And so she ends up helping the main guy who is trying to find his sister that went missing a few months or a year prior to the book starting when she was on a very Alaskan wilderness tour, and things aren't what they seem because they never are in suspense books or dystopian books. But it was okay. I mean, it was more than okay. I gave it a personal rating of 3 stars. So it was good. It was kind of average for me because I'm not really big into the wilderness thing. What else can I say about this book? It wasn't bad, and if this has any of your buzzwords or it sounds interesting to you, you could definitely try it out. Because even though it was suspenseful, and yes, there were murders and whatnot, there really wasn't a lot of blood or gore or dead bodies, which I appreciate. I probably won't end up keeping this book because space is getting very tight on my shelves, and it was kind of a more average book for me personally, but I could see why some would like it. Daisy says hello. I thought she was gonna nap. She was very worn out from this morning's events, but apparently not enough because she is now well rested and barking. Oh well. But for contemporary Christian books, I have one book, and it was a very good book, and that was Every Girl Gets Confused by Janice Thompson. I gave this 4 stars. Again, this was a reread for me. I read it back when it first released in 2016, and it was my goal throughout 2023 to reread this trilogy. So now I just have the 3rd book, and I'm almost there. It's such a fun series. I'm trying to think, what can I say about this book that's not too spoilery? I talked about the first book in another recent reads, and I'll link it up there if I can, because I don't recall if that was the same one that I mentioned safe all along, and they won't let me link the same video twice. So regardless, I will link what I can up in the cards for y'all to check out. But this is all about Katie Fisher, and it's fully told in her first person point of view. And I just think Janice Thompson writes great books, especially when they're in first person, because they've got the humor. Her family is something else. She has 3 brothers. She's now working in the Dallas metro area at a bridal shop, and she is dating the owner's son, who is a basketball player. This one had a lot of faith content. So in this second book, the first one, I'm trying to think, how can I explain this book without giving too many spoilers for book 1? But I mean, it's a rom-com, so it's not really too much of a spoiler. But Katie's boyfriend of many years broke up with her in the first book, and he kind of tries to re-enter her life in this one. So I think some might be getting a little frustrated by that, who read the series and might think that, why is he here? But in my opinion, she was never wishy-washy because she was completely focused on Brady. She didn't care about the ex-boyfriend. Like, she was civil to him, even though he broke her heart. But I don't feel like she ever had a thought to go back to him. It was more of like a she's comfortable with him kind of thing. So I don't really think there's a love triangle in this trilogy. I have heard some say there's a love triangle, and I probably would have said that prior to my reread, but reading this reread, I don't feel like there's a love triangle. Like, there is another guy who's trying to interfere, but he's not successful at all because Katie and Brady are the best. So there's that. I think you could almost put it up with Page Torn by Aaron Mangum, that whole Page Elder series. You could kind of say it was similar in that one, but I feel like that one had more of a, who will she end up with? I know who I'm rooting for, but who will she end up with? This, there's no question who she's picking kind of thing. So now I get to reread the 3rd book, and I'm very excited about that. So for DNFs, I'm just going to slide this in right here because they're all historical, and they're actually all the same trilogy, which stinks. But I gave it a try, and that was the Ladies of Liberty series by Tracie Peterson. I think I could have stuck with this series more had it been closer to the early 1900s instead of like the 1850s, 1860s this was set in, which is not my time period. I need a little more technology, and I need less bustles and hoop skirts. I just need different. That time period's not mine. I need the early 1900s. But I had different, here's the thing on Goodreads. I can't mark these to my reading challenge, which is really disappointing unless it counts towards my whole page goal, and I don't feel right because I only read I read 140 pages of this one, 100 of this one, and like 100 of this one. So I read a third of them, but it doesn't count. So I don't know. What do y'all do? If you DNF a book, do you add them to your reading challenge? Do you not worry about the page count? I'm curious because I'm torn on that, and I probably won't add them because I didn't finish them. But I don't know. I'm still debating. Okay, so for the first book was A Lady of High Regard by Tracie Peterson. Trigger warning for rape/sexual assault mentions. I just couldn't get into this book. I hate to say that the main girl was kind of a dummy, but she really was, because she gets on this bee in her bonnet to helping. Now, she's a lady of society, if you will. So, a lady of means. Is that, I think that's how they call it. I think that still works for this time period as well. I know that's Regency, but I think that counts for this time period. And she gets a bee in her bonnet to help other women that are in the dock situation that are being sexually assaulted by this man who they owe money to, their husbands are gone or passed away or whatever. And she gets this bee in her bonnet, and I keep saying that because that's how it felt, to go tell him that what he is doing has come to the intention of others, of those of power, like her. And it's just like, you're an idiot. But she went to go confront a guy basically by herself. She had her driver guy come with her, but like she was not the brightest bulb in the chandelier, if you know what I mean. So Oh, another thing I wanted to know about this book that just didn't settle well with me is she is writing for a women's magazine, and of course her parents were like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. It's scandalous. All of our friends and those of other society members are like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you let your daughter do that, so you need to stop that. And she's like, okay, I will honor your wishes, and she does. But she tells the lady at the magazine place, the head honcho lady, if you will, that she's not going to do it, but she wants to finish this case, this story about these women that are being blackmailed, basically. So the lady won't be able to contact Mia, the main girl, but Mia will be able to contact her. And so then she's not lying to her parents that she no longer works for her. Which, I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, technically you don't work for her, but you're still jumping through all these hoops and having to keep track of who you told what, which doesn't really make you innocent, in my opinion. Like, I still, didn't settle well with me. So yeah, DNF'd this one at about 140 pages in because she was just driving me batty. But I decided to pick up the next book to give it a shot. And it ended about the same way. So book 2 was A Lady of Hidden Intent, and okay, one thing I noticed with, I didn't recall it with book 1, but book 2 and 3 both had head jumping. And that's when you're in a certain, so like the main girl's point of view, and then all of a sudden there's a random paragraph that's his point of view. And that just drives me batty. I cannot stand when that happens. So that was a negative in my eyes for this one. But there also was high school level pettiness with a girl that the main girl in this works with. She is a designer. Was this the one she was the designer? Yes, she was the designer. She was from England. Family was disgraced. She went to America, became a dressmaker, designer, high in demand. And so she was working with this girl who's just got a burr in her saddle. I am pulling out all the phrases in this video. Wow, okay. But there's that high school level pettiness, and then many mentions of a woman's figure, which, like, okay, I kind of expected that with a dressmaking book, but there was a lot of mentions of that, and I was just like, okay, I don't need to know what everybody's figure and shape is. Like, y'all, it's okay. I really don't need to know that. But the final straw for me with this book was the main guy's brother has a mistress, and it's a younger mistress. I don't know how old, like the age difference or anything, but it's implied that she's young, so I assume maybe 17, 18, 19, something around that for this time period, maybe even younger. I don't know, but he gets her pregnant, and he pushes for her to get an abortion. And their father, this is the main guy's brother, so their father has apparently done this before with his mistress, and so it's deemed as, like, the main guy is like, this is not okay, but the family members are like, it's normal, it's fine, it's none of your business kind of thing. And that was the final straw for me. I don't want to read that, even if maybe it doesn't happen, which I kind of skimmed ahead and I couldn't find out if it did happen or not. And then I tried to look at reviews, and again, I couldn't tell. But that's just, yeah, I'm not, yes, I know that's real. Believe me, I know that's real. But I still don't like it. I read my fiction books for fun. That is not a fun topic. So that was my final straw with that book of, obviously it wasn't okay in the main character's eyes, but I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it, so. And then the final book in this trilogy, I tried, y'all. You gotta give me a little bit of props that I at least tried like 100 pages of all of them. And that was A Lady of Secret Devotion by Tracie Peterson. I think I only got to 90 pages, but it's fine. So the main girl in this one is Cassandra, or Cassie, and she isn't a woman of means, but like she's not dirt poor. So she somehow becomes this elderly rich woman's companion, which is already not believable as it is. But they strike it off, it goes great, and she starts just, hanging around this lady. But then the lady's son, who we're not sure how old the guy is. I'm assuming she was in her 70s, so I assume maybe he's in his 50s. And then our main girl is young. How old was she? I don't have that note. I think I moved that note. Bummer. But she was 20, I think she was my age, so she was 24, so. And he was a creep. Obviously he wasn't the main guy, but he was a creep. It had been noted before that he has taken liberties with women before. And then I stopped reading this book when he tried to pull her into his bedroom, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm not wasting my time. I feel like he's gonna cause problems again in the future. I don't feel like I'm missing anything out. Also, the main guy in this one was Mark. I swear it said Mark, but when I did my review, I read somewhere it was Marcus, so maybe he just goes by Mark. But he is trying to find a murder suspect, and it's, of course, linked to this elderly rich woman's jerk of a son, and he just kind of strikes up a friendship with our main girl, Cassie, and she is such a blabbermouth. Oh my goodness, y'all. She was just like, yeah, I don't like him. He's done this. He's kind of ill. He got shot. Like, she is just straight up telling this man she has never met before, hasn't even known him for more than 10 minutes, all about what's happening in this household. And I was just like, wow. Wow. Here's another phrase for you. Loose lips sink ships. It works with this girl too, because she was a mess. And then his horse nearly plows her down, and she's freaked out because she saw her father killed in front of her by a horse, bucking him off and like stepping on him, killing him. And so that was obviously traumatic. She has a fear of horses because of that. And the main guy is like, oh, my horse isn't like that. Touch him. Okay, it's fine. It's like, dude, come on. She just again blabbered her life story to you and all these details, and you're not affected because your horse is different. Buddy. Okay, so yeah, this series was 0 for 3 for me. Oh well. I read books I hauled. I now have more space on my TBR, which I really don't have space on my TBR because it's crazy. It's just so full. It's crazy. Continuing on to historical, I have 2 books in a trilogy. I haven't read the 3rd book yet, but I rated the 1st book higher. But so I don't, talk about books out of order because that would be weird. I'm gonna just talk about them even though the ratings are different. So the 1st book I enjoyed a bit more and gave 3.5 stars, and that was Vying for the Viscount by Kristi Ann Hunter. I had prior read a couple of her books and they had a bit too much romance for my taste, so I was a little leery on this series, but so far it hasn't been bad. This one though was a slow burn. Really slow. Like I was waiting, it felt like. So the main girl is Bianca, and she has always been at her neighbor's estate, house, place? Estate. Okay, neighboring estate. That she has always loved horses. She's always been at their stable. Stable, yeah, okay, I'm using the right words. This just does not feel historically accurate, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's fine. And things get a little, I don't want to say dicey, but things change when the Viscount of that place dies and his heir has to come. But his heir, who is our main guy, Hudson, he was born and raised in India, which was really fascinating to learn about that in, the early 1800s. I think this was 1817. Yeah, 1817. And it was just really interesting to see that because, it took him a year to get back to England because, they had to go down through Africa and, all that. It was fascinating. I thought that was very interesting. And I've had India mentioned in Regency books before, but it was really interesting to see it a little more prominent. And he really likes horses, and there's just, they were just cute together. It was definitely a slow burn romance though, which I was okay with pretty well because the other books I had read by this author, it was a little too much romance for my taste, so I was a little leery about this series, but 3.5 stars, I enjoyed it pretty well. I think what I really liked though was that the main guy, Hudson, was just wasn't sure about society. So he kind of teams up with our main girl Bianca to learn about society and how to fit in. And it was really a slow burn because even though she was interested in him, he was more interested in another girl that could kind of solve all his problems at once. So that was really why it was a slow burn, because he was being a doofus and not focusing on love and instead focusing on that marrying this one rich girl who's got access to these her father's horses would like solve a lot of problems. But you know, not bad. I overall enjoyed it. 3.5 stars. So after reading that one, I picked up the second book. And that was Winning the Gentleman by Kristi Ann Hunter. This is book 2. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't enjoy it as much. The main guy in this one is Aaron, who he was the stable manager. Is that the name of it? For Hudson's place. He's been there for years, so I was really looking forward to seeing his story. I do want to note though that this series really mentions other characters from the author's other books, which I haven't read. So again, I felt kind of left out, and that seems to be a theme. Because I'm not necessarily jumping in the middle of the series, but because the authors are bringing in other characters from other series, which I'm sure is cool for those who have read all of her books or read them in order. Because I had this problem with Erica Vich's last book that I talked about in a prior recent reads, that I felt a little left out because I didn't read things in publication date order, and apparently you have to do that. So just a heads up on that. I haven't read the other ones though. So we have Aaron, and he has an illegitimate child, and it's brought up a lot, but there really wasn't any details of that. But there was a lot of character development and growth for him to realize things he was doing was not healthy to himself, about reminding himself that he doesn't fit into society because of his father's choices and that kind of thing. Like, he's in society, but he's not accepted by society, being an illegitimate child. And then our main girl is Sophia, and Sophia wasn't my favorite character, to say the least. She wasn't bad. Like, she had her good points, but I think mainly she was just a nosy Nellie. Like, her name should have been Nellie. She was so nosy. It was a little insane. And she was okay. She was in a kind of circus setup doing tricks on a horse. She sees this opportunity to get hired as a jockey for Aaron. And of course, it's kind of like, you're a woman, I can't hire you. Well, I'm really good, so why don't you just try me out, that kind of thing. So, that kind of typical plot line. But I did appreciate that this book did not lean to that more, I hate to say it, but feminist mindset, which is super common in Christian fiction books, especially when the girl is like going against society's norms or doing things that aren't proper for women. They typically lean into that mindset that's like, how dare you tell me what I can't do, da 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 da. And I'm tired of seeing that. Many other Christian fiction readers, I believe, are tired of seeing it because I've seen it discussed a lot. And so I appreciate that she wasn't that way. She knew her limits. So like, was that a spoiler? I'm gonna have to cut that awkwardly. Sorry about that, my friends. She knew her limits though, and I really appreciated that. That made her better than me. She did not do the whole, I'm a woman, how dare you tell me what to do kind of thing. She experienced things she had in mind for herself. It was fine. I did also really like, she has a twin brother, and they have a very close relationship because of what they've been through, and obviously they're twins. So it was just really neat. I liked that sibling content. The third book will be his story, and while I'm not as interested in that one, I will still read it because I own it, so I might as well at least give it a shot. So, you know, not bad. 2 books that were also on my physical TBR that are off my TBR, which is good because my physical TBR is double stacked. So I'm getting there, y'all. I'm getting there. The next book is my last book for the Christian fiction, and then I've got a ton of clean fiction we're going to talk about here in a minute. But this book was one of my most anticipated books for this year, and it met them. That was To Spark a Match by Jen Turano. I have been just anticipating this book, I feel like, for so long, because this is book 2 in the series, The Matchmakers. The Matchmakers, that's a really good title because it has to do a little bit with matchmaking, and it was so much fun. She was our main girl in book 1, kind of her new best friend, and they were great. So I was so excited to read her point of view. She loves books. She has multiple cats. She is kind of that spinster character, which kind of hurt because I'm pretty sure she was right at my age. Let me see. I think I made a note. Yeah, she's actually a year younger than me, so that's so much fun. This is the thing I'm noticing, like, a lot of the books I read that I'll be talking about in this, a lot of the girls were like that 23, 24, and I'm 24 and a half. So it's a little weird now reading books about people my age, because when I first got into Christian historical fiction, I was like 13, 14, and it's like, wow, they're like 10 years older than me, and that wasn't that big of a deal, but it was like, okay, maybe this will be like when I'm that age, but it ain't. Okay, side note on that, it's just really weird to start reading about characters around my age. I don't know, that's just odd to me. When I started reading this one on Goodreads, I actually marked it, which I very rarely, I'm trying to do a little bit better of updating when I'm currently reading a book because I like to see how long it takes me to read a book, like hours to minute wise kind of thing. But this book I have been having for like the full week ahead of reading this book because I was so anticipating. I had that "It's time" little Mariah Carey gif, jingle, whatever you want to call it. I had that going through my head for the full week prior to reading this book, and yes, that was very annoying, but it did very accurately contain my excitement for this book. I personally gave this book a rating of a 4.75. I really enjoyed it. I do wish the faith content had been a little bit more because it was pretty light, and then the other little quarter star off was just because there was some mishandling of guns and weapons that was supposed to be funny but just kind of felt irresponsible to me. So like that's my only little nitpicks, if you will. I really enjoyed this book. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. I just giggled so much. Like I laughed so hard at certain points I was crying. It was just so humorous to me. I've heard from different book friends that the audiobook is not the best. So if you prefer audiobooks, maybe check this one out as a physical book because I read it as a physical book and I really enjoyed it. So I'm thinking it's maybe that difference. I'm trying to think how I can tell y'all about this. Let's see. Our main girl, spinster, has a ton of cats, rescues cats often, loves to read, and our main guy is Gideon. And just from the opening page, I just started getting so tickled. I think I just had such high expectations of this book, and it met them. I wanted just a kind of fluffy but entertaining read that was humorous, and this was totally it. This honestly might be my favorite book by this author. I really love her debut book, A Change of Fortune. I can just read that first, like, little bit, couple paragraphs of that one, and I'm cracking up. I do really, really enjoy that one. So, I think it might be tied. I don't know. This was just so much fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Our main guy, Gideon, is kind of a former intelligence agent, and he's trying to figure things out, and she's trying to, like, figure out why he's being secretive and all that kind of thing, which typically that I feel like would annoy me, but because I just loved Adelaide so much, I didn't really care. I was just like, this is great. I enjoyed it so much. Really good. Definitely one of my favorite books of the year. I was just so happy reading it. It was great. It's definitely in my top 5 by this author, without a doubt, in my top 5. Is it 1 or 2 though? I don't know. Okay, so moving on to clean fiction, I'm going to have all the timestamps down below if you just want to skip around. I kind of have them organized in a way, but they're not really organized fully by rating. It's kind of like genre then rating, if that makes any sense. So first book to discuss is Absolutely Not in Love by Jenny Proctor. I'm not rating this book because while I did like get giggly and excited because it's a clean rom-com, the romance was definitely past what I prefer. I like mine way squeakier, and there was quite a bit of kisses that lasted like full pages, and that was a little much for my taste for sure. I mean, no bedroom scenes, but again, clean fiction. A general understanding is that means no bedroom scenes, no major language. And so by those standards, yes, this book met that. But for me, it wasn't as clean as I prefer it. Let's just put it that way. It was cute in the sense of the main girl, Gracie, is a professional musician? I cannot think. She plays the cello, teaches it, does orchestra-like things, and so that was really neat. And then the main guy, Felix, is that silent, strong type, but he's a goalie in hockey. And so it had the whole hockey stuff, which I know nothing about hockey. Like, I'm just gonna say, the first time I heard Stanley Cup, it was referring to the water bottle, not the trophy. I don't know why they have the same name, but regardless, I don't know anything about hockey. There is going to be apparently a spin-off series off of a couple of his teammates, which their teammates were fun. They might be entertaining to read, but again, a little more romance content than I preferred. It was neat how bookish they both were, and even though Gracie has a major rule to not date hockey players, yeah, you know that's going to go out the window when she sees him. There was some awkward moments and, like, you know, different things. Overall concept, fun. Romance content, too much for my taste. I can see why different friends would like it though. I can definitely see that. It's just too much for my taste. And I definitely would put it at 18 plus because of different things. Also on the contemporary romance rom-com, also on KU side would be But He's My Grumpy Neighbor by Annah Conwell. I gave this book a personal rating of 3 stars. I have a lot of friends who love her books, and I see why, because especially if like you compare to other clean rom-coms I've read, this was the closest to being squeaky clean that I prefer, which is great. It wasn't excellent in my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan, I think, of this author's writing style. I've tried one of her books before and did a soft DNF of it because it kind of has the main characters telling you about their lives prior to the book, and it almost feels like a narrator style, which isn't not really my thing. But you know, this was cute. It was the grumpy sunshine trope. She is a ball of sunshine and he is a grump. It was cute, you know. I would probably check out the rest of the series. It does have like different trigger warnings if her parents were verbally and manipulatively abusive growing up and she no longer has contact with her parents. She also has a panic attack on pages and he has to talk her through it. They were really cute together. I don't really have much to say. The cover is definitely one of my favorites of all the like the faceless rom-com trends going around. I think this is one of my favorites. I think it's because of the floral. I like florals. So, you know, not bad. I would check out the rest of the series as they release when I want something that I don't really have to think much about. I would try it. The next book was a clean Regency book, and it was just a random one I picked up on a whim because it was also on Kindle Unlimited, and that's Lady Ludmilla. I don't even know how to pronounce her name. Lady Lou. We're going to call her Lady Lou's Accidental Letter by Sofi. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Yeah, okay, well, I gave this one 1 star, so I guess I don't really need to talk about it too much. It was humorous, and it had the Regency dramatics that I enjoy, but I ended up not liking it by the end, which was unfortunate. I don't really know how to explain why I didn't like this one. Like, I have my review, but I also hid a lot of the content notes under the spoiler section. Not because they were spoilers, but just because I don't really want younger eyes to see some of that content. Y'all, I'm struggling to explain this book. I don't want to explain this book. Basically, it's the accidental pen pal trope. She sends a letter to what was supposed to be her friend, but her friend wasn't there, and this person responded, and they keep up a correspondence, not really knowing that, oh, I'm a guy, you're a girl, this is scandalous, and like they know that, but then they still keep up doing it anyway. And he was just a piece of work. Like, she had met him prior to the pen pal thing, and then didn't know that was him because they kind of kept their identities a secret, which I should have liked the secret identity trope, but he was such a piece of work. He could have stayed a secret. Like, he was constantly making comments on women's chests and their bodies, and then there's mentions of indecent novels, as they called it, and I was like, you know, this is not fun. I don't know why I finished it. I really don't. Maybe for some redemption, but there wasn't enough, in my opinion. He needed to, like, lay on the floor on his knees begging to her for forgiveness, and that didn't happen, so I don't know. I didn't like it. Meh. Continuing on to Clean Regency, I read this one and gave it 2 stars, and that was In the Shelter of Hollythorne House by Sarah E. Ladd. So Sarah E. Ladd, her older books had a bit of Christian content, but now her newer books are really just on that clean side, published by Thomas Nelson, which I feel like I've discussed that before, that I want Christian fiction. I want my Christian fiction publishers to publish Christian fiction. We don't need to be publishing clean fiction. There's other places and other people that do that. But, you know, it was just typical. I honestly, like, I don't even remember what this book was about. I read it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember it. Kind of like Lady Lou. I kind of read, recycled, delete that information, which I try to keep the information in my head until I film these recent reads, but yeah, there's quite a few of these that I was just like, and this was one of them. It was just a typical Regency. There was no faith content to stand out. There really wasn't any humor to make me laugh. Nothing took me by surprise. I don't know, it was just run-of-the-mill, which I hate to say because that sounds really mean, but I don't know what to say, y'all. I didn't find it impressive or special. Sorry. What even was that book about? Oh, now I'm remembering. Okay, so the main girl was widowed, and her husband, her late husband, was physically abusive, but prior to getting married, she had a romance with this other guy who was technically below her station, and then of course, because it's a romance book and it's a second chance romance at that. Once her husband dies, she has to be protected because she is now a wealthy widow with a young son who is an heir to a big fortune. So guards are hired to protect her, and who happens to be one of those guards but her former flame. So, yeah, it was that. I literally didn't remember anything looking at this cover. I was like, I don't remember this book. You know, that's okay. I still remember song lyrics from when I was 12, so, you know, we can recycle and delete some information. Make room for more. Okay, a random book that I read was Keeper of the Lost Cities graphic novel, part 1, volume 1, however they're going to call it. I wasn't going to check out this book. I honestly wasn't, but I was curious on how it would be. I'm going to straight off say I gave it 3 stars. I think that's a little generous. If you can read the books, read the books. The books are better, by far. This art style in this is also not my favorite. I personally will not be buying a physical copy of this book for multiple reasons. So there's that. I have a full content review. It wasn't bad. It only covered like the first half of the first book. So it was fine. I don't know. There was little things, and I did a big review on a Facebook group that is for book reviews for Christian families, and I really like that group, and I did a very in-depth review there because I did like comparisons to the book and like the written book to this comic book. And I can't really do that on Goodreads, but I feel like I still gave enough info on the Goodreads review. It was okay. It was okay. I feel like it was a money grab. I hate to say that. That sounds so mean. But it's not necessary. Like, if you can read the book, read the book. It's much better. A lot of little content details were confusing, or like you just assumed that they knew. That they know what you're talking about because you've read the actual book. You've probably read the whole series kind of thing. I don't know. It just wasn't great. I didn't like the art style. I really don't think it's necessary. I mean, I know major fans of the series will read it, but I don't personally think it was necessary at all. A Kindle Unlimited little fairy tale book, To Escape a Wonderland by Cece Lewis. I gave this one 2.5 stars. This is kind of a... Is it considered a portal fantasy? I'm not sure, but it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling. And you know, I thought it was a very unique retelling in the sense of the Alice in Wonderland, that the Jabberwock is this dragon-like, beast-like creature that if you stare into its eyes, you get transported into Wonderland. And you know, I thought it was different. I was like, hey, that's different. I like that twist on Alice in Wonderland. You know... Again, it was kind of like that's all I can remember at this moment, and I read this one probably a week ago, but it's been a busy week, so to be fair, my memory is trash, but it's also been a really busy week. It's told in alternating first-person point of view of the main girl and then the main guy, and they kind of felt the same. Like, they didn't really have like a very big difference in their voice, which I don't typically notice that, but I did in this one because I was like, whose point of view is this again? Oh yeah, it's his. Okay. Whose point of view is this again? Oh, it's hers. Okay, that kind of thing, if you know what I mean, kind of. She noticed him shirtless and his abs and muscles and all that way too much for such a little book. Way too much, but I didn't have high hopes, so. I don't know what to say. It also is in the middle of a series, and it's not connecting to the other books in that series. And like what is this? The Shattered Fairy Tales series? It's just a series I've seen on KU going around. I don't think it was excellent, personally. It's not even connected, though, to those other books. It's connected to another series by this author, so mentions of other characters and their stories. And I know I jump in the middle of the series, and I expect it to a degree, but it happened a lot in the books I've discussed. So, like, literally, the Kristi and Hunter Regency books, the, Absolutely Not Love. Like, I had a lot of jumping into the middle of series because I was interested in those. Or not even jumping in the middle of the series, but still other characters are being mentioned and I feel left out. So, anyway, that's that. And it wasn't bad. Not one of my favorites. I wouldn't buy a copy of it. Okay, now this video is picking up. I feel like this has been a really, like, meh list. I'm sorry. I hope I fangirled enough about to spark a match because I did really enjoy that one. Okay, so the next few books I have are better, so let's discuss those. And the first book would be Drafted by Tommie Michelle. I give this one 3.5 stars. This is a clean dystopian book, and I love dystopian books. I need more Christian dystopian books in my life so much, so when I saw clean dystopian, I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I gave it a try, and I ended up really enjoying it pretty well. I'm very much looking forward to the rest of the series. The author is currently working on book 2, like writing it. So I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait, but I'm a little bummed because I got sucked into this world and I just wanted to continue the series. Like, had this already been released, I would have read them back to back, hands down, because I was very much invested in this world. This book is clean fiction though, so there's no faith content, but there's also no cursing, no sexual innuendos or sexual content, which was really nice. My one little disclaimer about this book though is that our main girl is kind of, what's the word? I can't pronounce this word. Vigilant? No, that's not it. Let me look up how to say it.
Vigilante.
That's how you say that?
Vigilante.
Vigilante? Vigilante? That is... Are they pulling my leg?
Vigilante.
Vigilante. Okay, so apparently that's what... That just does not work in my brain at all. This is the problem when you're a reader and you learn words by reading. You don't know how to pronounce half of them, as you most likely can already tell from this video, and any of my videos on my channel is I struggle with pronouncing things, and that's because I read them. I've never been an audiobook girl, but apparently if you're an audiobook girl, you don't have this problem as much, so there's that. Our main girl's name is Reverie, and she has this mission to find out what happens to the kids that were kidnapped 10 plus years ago. They were drafted, hence the title. And her little sister was a part of that. So she has made it her personal mission to find out what happened to her little sister. And that does include killing some of the government officials and like that plans. And so this opening chapter just started off with her murdering. She's an archer, hence the archery gear on the cover. She's an archer, so it does include her murdering the set of parents that she didn't know were parents. So she now has kind of become responsible, or not really responsible, but at least a little more helpful to their kids, which includes their teenage son, who's about her age. And things happen! And it's not really that romance heavy either, which was really nice. I mean, you definitely see potential for that in the future books, but you know, overall I thought this was interesting, even though there was like her killing people, which I don't approve of, obviously. It wasn't graphic, at least, so I appreciate that. It was kind of like a very blunt style on how that was written. So I don't know, we later see character development and guilt and that kind of thing, but it was enjoyable overall. I definitely am looking forward to the second book. It was enjoyable. It was very clean despite her killing people. That sounds really weird to say, but... Alright, the next 4 books I have are in a series. Look how tiny they are. They look so tiny. And that is The Accidental Cases of Emily Abbott. I can't pronounce it. One day I will get that. And I'm still going to think I'm wrong. That's what's going to happen. By Perry Elizabeth Kirkpatrick, though. This was book 3, 4, 5, and 6. I was in such a mood to just read this series, so I read book 3, Bad Things, Small Packages, which I gave 4 stars, easy 4. I gave them all 4, really. But I read this one. I was like, oh, it ended on a cliffhanger. Gotta read the next one. And that was Tudor and Annie Spit Up Spy, which I think this was probably my favorite one of these 4. And it ended in like not really a cliffhanger, but I'm like, oh, I need to know what's going to happen next, because they follow back to back, and I just love that concept so much. So I read A Spying We Will Go, which was book 5, also gave 4 stars. And then this one I think did end on a cliffhanger. This one did end on a cliffhanger, didn't it? I have to look. Yes, this one was on a mean cliffhanger. So yeah, I had to pick up the next one, which is Once Upon a Time by Perry Elizabeth Kirkpatrick. All of them are by this author. And I gave it 4 stars. And this one didn't necessarily end on a cliffhanger, and I have been told that book 8 ends in a cliffhanger. I haven't even read book 7, but I've been told book 7 and book 8 end in a cliffhanger, and book 8's cliffhanger is really bad. So, I'm trying to hold off. I am trying to pace myself. I'm trying to ration the rest of this series, because I have no info on when book 9 is going to be coming out. The author has been working on it, and then I believe she moved, so the scheduling things got mixed up, but half of it, I think, is available on her website, but not the other half. And I can't wait. So I am eagerly awaiting. These are just so much fun. They are clean. A little bit of mystery suspense. It's about a main girl named Emily who was just a normal barista, and then her co-worker in the first book is a little like, with this guy, and it turns out he's a spy. So she's gotten involved in the spying things, and she's gotten even more. And I just love that, even though it might be a little cheesy or maybe even unrealistic, I know that if I became an accidental spy and had like someone my age who could like talk to me about like, oh, you're a spy, okay, what's all these gadgets? I definitely would be asking probably the same exact questions Emily's been asking, because she's very like, you know, in tune with spy movies and all the gadgets and gizmos, and so she's like, is it like the movies? And he's like, it's not like the spy movies, Emily. And it's just so cute. They're so cute. There's not really any romance either. Really, there's like little hints that maybe crumbs one day, which I will be very excited for because they are adorable. And it's just fun. You know, there's a little bit of faith content sprinkled in each one, so I put it more towards the clean fiction side, even though I have been reviewing them on Books for Christian Girls, because they are a very fun series and the author is Christian and things like that. It's kind of really my only exception to my Christian book only on BFCG. It's really my only exception, but I really want to read books 7 and 8 because these are just such fun, bite size, I guess you could say. Like they're small, like obviously. I mean, I feel like, is it? No, this one's about the same. This is an average size book. It's small, but they are so much fun. The whole series is on Kindle Unlimited, so have fun. I've read up to book 6 and really enjoyed them all. I think I've enjoyed these later books more than the first ones, but still, just the concept is so much fun. I really want the rest of the series so bad. Here is our stack of books. That's very precarious. Why is this so precarious? I am struggling here. Okay, so what books will I be keeping on this stack? Every Girl Gets Confused. Obviously, that is staying. The Emily Abbott series, staying. Drafted, staying. To Spark a Match, staying. The Tracie 3 Peterson books, I'm not keeping those. I DNF'd those for a reason. Elizabeth Gardner's Shadows at Dusk, I probably will be passing along. This trilogy of the Hearts on a Hearth by Kristi and Hunter, we're gonna see how the third book goes. I like the first book. I would potentially keep the first book because I really liked Hudson and Bianca, the main couple of that. But do I need to keep it when I'm having space shortages? I don't know. So we'll see how the third book goes on that before I decide, but I definitely won't be keeping the second book, which was Winning the Gentleman. I won't be keeping that one. Vying for the Viscount, possibly. Not sure yet. As far as ebooks I talked about, which ones would I buy copies of? I would buy a copy of Our Faithful God Devotional. That very first book I talked about today. I would buy that one, and that's probably it. You know, okay, so overall this video might have been a little meh, and I'm sorry about that. Hopefully I didn't complain or fuss too much about these. I didn't have the best success, but you know, To Spark a Match met my expectations. The Emily Abbott series, so much fun. And Drafted was a really nice surprise, and of course I'm going to like the Janice Thompson rereads. So there were some gems in this one. We had to find them in the rough kind of thing. I'm just pulling out all these phrases. Where are these phrases coming from in my head? I don't know. I think I just used like half of the phrases I know in one video. Oh well. Okay, so that was the 21 books I have read recently. I'd love to know if you've read any of these. Do you want to read any of these? Did any of these catch your eyes? All the normal questions, but I really like seeing what catches y'all's eye and seeing if we have anything in common in the comments. It's always fun. So thank you for watching, for commenting, for liking, subscribing, all that kind of things. I really appreciate it. It's hard to believe it's already towards the end of the year. So that means I have some upcoming videos that I'm very excited about coming, because the end of the year, beginning of the year is always, I feel like, the best part of being a booktuber, because I get to wrap up the year and talk about anticipated releases. I love that. That's probably my favorite time of the year for being a booktuber, actually. So I'll see y'all with all of those, but do let me know if any of these caught your eye. I feel like this was a pretty wide variety of genres, a lot of Kindle Unlimited books. I do plan to make a video towards January about all the books I read on Kindle Unlimited this year, like I did last year. I really liked doing that video. I thought that was really neat, and kind of averaging out, was my subscription worth it for the year? Not that I can do anything about it if it wasn't, because you know, it's already I already paid it kind of thing. But I read a lot of Kindle Unlimited books this year so far, and I've worked pretty well on getting books off of my physical TBR as well, which was a really high priority, as you can tell from knocking off 5 of them, which was great. Well, I mean, technically these were also on my physical TBR, so you could say 9. I had 9 books on my physical TBR that I knocked off. I don't think there's anything else I have to say to y'all in this video, besides that I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you again for watching. I think that's it. Again, I'd love to talk about these books and all the other books in the comments below, so feel free to leave me a comment and we can chat away. Thank you again though. I am Lindsey from the blog booksforchristiangirls.blogspot.com, where there's a new review every Monday and Friday. I've been trying to post a new video on this channel every Friday, and I've been doing really good at it, so hopefully that streak can continue because I have lots of video plans for the end of the year, beginning of the year. And then I'm also on Instagram and TikTok and Goodreads, and we have a newsletter for Books for Christian Girls if you would like to receive updates about what's going on all our social media sites, because I know it can be a lot to keep up with all the social media sites. Believe me, I know. So it's a way to keep track of all that. If you'd like to have even more recommendations because your TBR is not big enough, feel free to hit the link in the description for that, and I will see y'all next time. Thank you so much for watching, and have an absolutely lovely rest of your day.